Hello students, welcome to online classes of Sri Mahavir International School, Kishangarh Renwal. I hope you all are well at your home. Today we will discuss about chapter number 3 of history, that is the Sultans of Delhi. And in this chapter you will learn about the dynasties of the Delhi Sultanate and about the system of administration of the Delhi Sultanate, and at last we will discuss that how the decline of the Delhi Sultanate. All these things we will discuss in this chapter, and by the end of this chapter, dear students, you will be able to understand that about the five dynasties that rule the Delhi Sultanate. They that five dynasties were slave dynasty, second Khilji, third Tughlaq, fourth Sayyid, and fifth Lodi dynasty, and how the dynasty had efficient ruling system and administrative method, and that the Delhi Sultanate declined due to the clamor for power among the nobles. And this chapter deals with the rule of the Delhi Sultanate by the different dynasties. Delhi was the capital of the Delhi Sultanate in the beginning of the 13th century, and the lesson explains their system of administration and the eventual decline of the Delhi Sultanate. Now let's start the chapter. First, we will discuss about sources of Delhi Sultanate. Apart from inscription, coins, and monuments, history is written form called Tariq provide information on the Delhi Sultanate. It means inscription, coins, and monuments. These are the sources of history. But apart from these, there are also another source of the history, that is Tariq, and from the Tariq we can gather information of Delhi Sultanate. It was written in Persian, which was the language of administration under the Delhi Sultanate, and these tarikhs were written in Persian language, and Persian language also the court language of the Delhi Sultanate. These tawarikh, plural form of tariq, were written by learned men who not only recorded events but also advised the Sultan on governance. It means these tawarikh or tariq were written by the nobles of the sultans of the Delhi Sultanate, and these sultan also advised the and these nobles also advised the sultans. However, one has to be careful while studying the history of the Delhi sultans on the basis of these contemporary sources. Individual writing under the patronage of a contemporary ruler were making their own decision about what was important and what was not. Further, they dealt mostly with matters which did not concern the general public. These authors wrote stories for the sultans in the hope of rich rewarded, or were court historian sponsored by the sultan, and therefore more often than not they are uncritical of the state or their rulers. Now we will discuss about main dynasties of the Delhi Sultanate. Delhi Sultanate was ruled by five dynasties. Number first, the slave dynasty that ruled from the 1206 to 1290 CE. Second, Khilji dynasty that ruled 1290 to 1320 CE. And third dynasty that was Tughlaq dynasty, and that ruled 1320 to 1414 CE. Fourth dynasty, the Sayyid dynasty that ruled 1414 to 1451 CE, and fifth, the Lodi dynasty that ruled 1451 to 1526 CE. And after 1526, there was the Mughal Empire, Mughal rule on Delhi Sultanate. that we will discuss in next chapter. But in this chapter, now first we will discuss about slave dynasty. The establishment of the Delhi Sultanate needed reliable governor and administration. Muhammad Ghori had no sons, so he narrated slaves called Bandagan in Persian like his son. It means Muhammad Ghori has no sons, that's why he narrated slaves. Slaves means gulam, like his son. It means he behaved their slaves like a sons. These slaves were placed as governor and later raised to the status of sultans. And these governor of the Muhammad Ghori became the governor and then after the sultan. After Ghori's death in 1206, one of his slaves, Qutbuddin Aibak, laid the foundation of the slave dynasty which ruled over the subcontinent for about 84 years. It means the founder of the slave dynasty was the Qutbuddin Aibak, and this slave dynasty founded in 1206, and the slave dynasty ruled in Delhi approximately for 84 years. And then after Qutbuddin Aibak, Samsuddin Iltutmish and Ghiyasuddin Balbal, the three great sultans of the dynasties, were themselves sold and purchased during their early lives. It means the main sultans of the slave dynasties were Qutbuddin Aibak, Samsuddin Iltutmish and Ghiyasuddin Balbal. Now, in Turkan-e-Chehlgani, the most important institution that developed under the slave dynasty was the institution of Turkan-e-Chehlgani. It means Turkan-e-Chehlgani, that is a organization or institution that formed in the slave dynasty. It was also called Chalgan or the 40 Chalganas were a group of highly placed and powerful officers whom Iltutmish had organized as his personal supporters, and this institution is also known as Chalganas and 40 Chalganas because there were 40 members, and that organization was formed by Iltutmish. When Balban assumed charge as Sultan, it means when Balban became the Sultans, he crushed their power and strengthened his rule. It means he destroyed the Turkan e Chehalgani. In 1236, Razia, the daughter of Iltutmish, it means Razia was the daughter of Iltutmish, became the Sultan of the Delhi Sultanate. The chronicles of this period, Minhaj us Siraj, said that she was more able and qualified than all her brother. It means chronicler or noble of the Razia's period named Minhaj us Siraj. And Minhaj us Siraj said that it means Razia was more able and more brave comparison their brothers. But the nobles in her court were uncomfortable at having a lady as a ruler, and therefore differences within the court became the order of the day. But the nobles and the scholars of the Rajia's court, they were uncomfortable or dissatisfied to become the Rajia as a sultan. Ultimately, Rajia Sultan was removed from the throne in 1240 CE, and in 1240 CE, Rajia was died in a war. Now, from garrison town to empire. Till the late 13th century, the control of the Sultanate was largely confined to heavily fortified towns with the presence of soldiers known as garrison town. It means what was garrison towns? In 13th century, there was a area that fortified, and from that the soldiers was controlling, and this known as garrison town. It would have been extremely difficult for the sultans to adjust to the system of revenue extraction of the earlier period in these regions. They were new to the territory and came from the different ruling background altogether, because all soldiers they belong to the different background. Therefore, in the beginning, the major part of the revenue of the Sultanate came from the tribute and plunder of the territories surrounding the garrison towns. That's why they plunder. It means lootna. It means robbery of the territories that surrounded garrison town. The accession of Balban in around 1265. It means the Balban became Sultan approximately in 1265, provided the Sultanate with an iron-willed ruler who aimed to consolidate the hinterland, the area adjacent to a city of the garrison town, for constant extraction of revenue and resource. Under him, Yamuna Doab huge forest area were cleared in the Ganga Yamuna Doab, and these land were given to the peasants. And under the Balban period, the forest area cleared in the Ganga Yamuna river Doab, and these area given to the peasants. Many new towns and fortresses were also built in situate to the Mukti or the local commanders and the soldiers. When the Sultanate expanded till the south, the Sultanate collected revenue from the peasantry traders, and in some cases tribute was also taken from the local rulers. Balban was succeeded by weak rulers. It means after the Balban, the ruler or sultan of the slave dynasty were weak, hence the throne of Delhi was taken over by the Khilji, and then after the power that controlled by the Khilji dynasty. Now we will discuss about Khilji dynasty. The Khilji and Tughlaq continued to use the bandagan or slave in administrative post. It means they continue the bandagas policy or slave in administration. However, they also placed people of humble birth in high political and military position, and as governors. This dependence of the Sultan of Delhi on bandagans and nobles of humble birth also caused political instability, and it means in Khilji and Tughlaq dynasty, the bandagas or nobles of humble is create political instability. They tended to remain loyal to their patron sultan and not to their successors. Therefore, the accession of new sultan often saw conflict between the old and the new nobility. It means then there will be the conflict and war and disputes between the new and old nobility. The sultan used to appoint military commander as governor of territory of varying size. These lands were called Ikta, or their holder were called Iktedar or Mukti, and this land is known as Ikta, and the head of the or holder of the land or holder of the Ikta is known as Iktedar or Mukti. The duty of the Mukti was to join military campaign and maintain law and order, and the main function of the Mukti was join military campaign and maintain law and order. In exchange for their military services to the Sultan, the Muktis were given the authority to collect the revenue of their iqtar as salary, and in return, the Mukti were given the authority, it means the power to collect revenue in the iqta. And iqta was the land that given by Sultan. They also paid their soldiers from these revenues. The Khilji and the Tughlaq also relied on the Ikta system of administration, but ensured that the office of Muftis was not hereditary and they were frequently transferred. It means these Muftis were not hereditary. It means they were transferred in other places. The Muftis were also asked to strictly maintain the required number of soldiers, and these muktis also maintain the soldiers when required in war. These stopped the muktis from building social and political connection and becoming powerful, and that's why this is the control the power of the muktis. These later sultans took utmost care that the muktis collected only the prescribed taxes and not more than that. For this, they appointed accountant who informed the sultan about the amount of revenue collected by the muktis. And to control these muktis, sultan also appoint the accountant, and the main function of the accountant that they inform about the revenue collected by muktis to the sultans. And dear student, in the leadership, and when Alauddin Khilji was the sultan, these portion that in green color was the territory, the area that controlled by the Alauddin Khilji. Now next, the Khiljis, the ruler of the Khilji dynasty were Jalaluddin Khilji, Alauddin Khilji, and Kutubuddin Mubarak Shah Khilji. Were the main ruler of the Khilji dynasty. Alauddin Khilji made an attempt to systematize and unify land revenue and urban taxes. He instituted a high centralized system of administration over his realm. Under the early Delhi Sultanate, Islamic land tax kharaj had been fixed at one-sixth of the produce. It means what was kharaj? A Islamic land tax, and that was the one-sixth of the produce. But Alauddin Khilji raised the kharaj to 50% of the produce and introduced direct collection. But the Alauddin Khilji increased these khairaj up to the 50% and they collect directly. He also imposed tax on cattle and houses and also imposed new taxes on cattle and houses. Ziauddin Barni, a noble or a scholar, a contemporary chronicle, informed us that revenue collectors were ordered to demand revenue with such rigor that the peasants were forced to sell their standing crop to meet the tax demand. When Ziauddin Barni said that the peasants that couldn't be paid the revenue, they sold their crops when it was not harvest. Tax from the Doab area were spent on paying cash salary to the soldiers. Mongol attack increased on the Delhi Sultanate during the reign of Alauddin Khilji. It means during the Alauddin Khilji period, there was another attack of Mongol. This forced him to recruit a very large standing army in Delhi and for the protection of the area there was a demanding of large army, but this also was a huge administrative and economic challenge for him. He took various measures to meet these challenges. The Sultan could not have given ikta to all the soldiers and therefore he preferred to give them cash salary. And the Alauddin Khilji stopped giving the ikta and he started giving the cash salary to the soldiers. The payment to the huge military also meant that Alauddin was able to extract enough revenue. Alauddin Khilji also controlled the price of the commodities as he had to maintain the large army at a minimum cost, and Alauddin Khilji also controlled the price of the goods. He fixed the price of all commodities. It means he fixed the price of all goods, all products from grain to cloth, slave, cattle, etc. A controller of the market called the Sena-e Mandi, and Claudin Khilji also appointed another officer known as Sena-e Mandi, and the main duty of the Sena-e Mandi to control the market, and intelligence officer known as Bari, and also appoint and another officer known as Barid, and the main function of the Barid to implement the market control measures. Now next dynasty, Tughlaq dynasty, that we will discuss in next video.